Hello there, my friends. Welcome back to the show. Awesome to have you here again with me today. And today, again, I've got another awesome interview for you. It's with a guy called Yogi Aaron. Now, Aaron, as his name may suggest, is a yogi. He's hugely into his yoga and is in fact a yoga teacher. He's taught yoga and instructed yoga for many, many years now, and also is a teacher to yoga instructors, helps to teach people how to become yoga instructors as well. He has recently written a book and also owns a business called Blue Osa. Now, Blue Osa is a retreat-based business. He lives down in Costa Rica, and that's where he has this amazing property. If you see some of the images on online, or maybe you've even been down there, but it just looks like such an amazing place where he hosts retreats that are based around yoga, that are based around trying to create transformation in people as well. And he has ones that are just designed for yoga and ones that are designed for people who are wanting to become yoga teachers. And that sounds like such an amazing thing, because it's a month-long retreat where basically you go and live with him in his property, this amazing property, for a month, learn how to teach yoga, learn more about yourself and how to transform yourself. And he's really brought this combination, which I love, of yoga and personal transformation. And that is something that I absolutely adore, that idea, and he seems to absolutely love doing it as well. So in the interview we go through quite a few things, including Aaron's personal story of how he got into Blue Osa and how he got into yoga, and something that really almost killed him when he was in the Himalayas, and how he overcame that. It's a really interesting story, that time in the Himalayas where he almost died climbing up a mountain. And we also share 3 steps to overcoming pain. That can be physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain. How yoga helped Aaron to get through tremendous physical and emotional pain of his own, and how he used his teachings in yoga to help him get through that, and how you can too. And what it feels like to find your passion, because that's something that once you hear Aaron speak, you really know that he has found his passion and what his purpose is on this earth. So what it feels like to find that, how your reaction to bad things is more important than the actual bad thing itself. And I think this is just such a key mind shift to comprehend as well. And getting over your own self-doubts and doing something amazing. This is what Aaron did with his retreats down in Costa Rica. You know, as you can imagine, it's not an easy thing to comprehend, to say, I'm going to go down to Costa Rica and I'm going to run these amazing retreats. So how he got over his own self-doubts to do that. And that's what we share in this interview. It's a really interesting interview. I love talking to Aaron, and I hope you enjoy it too. Just before we get into it, don't forget the Facebook group, IamMichaelLove.com/tribe. You can also head over to the website, IamMichaelLove.com, to get the show notes for this episode, IamMichaelLove.com/033 to be precise, and it'll take you, because Aaron mentions quite a few books in there and things like that as well. So all the links and everything like that is in the show notes. And without further ado, here is me and Aaron. Hey there, Aaron. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm doing really great, Michael. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure to have you on. It's an absolute pleasure. So, Aaron, first question I normally ask on these interviews is, who is Yogi Aaron? Describe who are you?
Who am I? Who I am is still a born name. I have been asking myself that question seriously for the last few years. I have been wearing many different hats and wearing many different who am I's. I think it really started out in 2001 when I landed in New York and became a full-time, full-on yoga teacher. And in the wake of that, I started a special class for gay men, and then became this mentor, unsuspecting mentor to gay men, and that journey took me all over the world, and starting to hold special yoga classes where I would say 98 to 100% of the class was filled with gay men. So once in a while we had different kinds of men, but mostly it was just gay men. And so I became, for all intents and purposes, kind of a minister to gay men through yoga. And that was when I really started to find a deep calling or a deep connection to the importance of community and supporting each other. And then that led me to opening up a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. And the who am I question really started to sit with me once I came to Costa Rica, because I really walked away from that community, from that work that I was doing in New York and with my worldwide retreats and workshops. And I was left with this, who am I? Am I a hotel owner? Am I a yoga retreat owner? Like, I'm not really a yoga teacher anymore. So, as I wasn't teaching, umpteen yoga classes and workshops every week. And so now I am starting to get back into teaching, and so I'm kind of wearing that hat again as a yoga teacher. I think of myself as an entrepreneur. I also think of myself as someone who, I think of myself as a steward, a custodian, if you will, of this property, and also of this community that I've been blessed to look over and look after at Blue Osa. Meaning the people that not only just come here, but more to the point, like the people that work for us and the people that we contract to work for us. And so I feel like it's part of our job to look after these people and keep their livelihoods as alive as possible and as strong as possible, so that they can go out and nurture the community as well.
I've seen like videos and pictures and stuff of the place that you've got out there, and it just looks incredible, both the beauty of the actual place and the kind of stuff that you're putting on, the classes that you're putting on, the people that you have there, and all, like, everything just seems amazing over there.
It's very much a big treat, because one of my main jobs now, I guess, is, and it's always changing the hats that I wear here, but one of the hats, which is something I'm starting to do more of, is leading what we call a 1-month immersion. And it's really a transformation program. It's a yoga teacher training, but it's a yoga teacher training, a very strong one, but it's also a very powerful transformation program. And it's my favorite thing to do all year, because we get people that come and they literally say, like, I came here to transform. I came here to look at myself and to look at what's not working in my life and get rid of it, and do things that are constructive and do things that do help me and empower me. And it's such a treat. I get such a charge out of leading it, and I get such a charge out of being able to teach people who really show up with that sincere wanting and hunger for something more in their life, because they always find it.
Was that an intentional thing? Did you set up the program thinking this is going to be a yoga program, a yoga teacher program, and a personal transformation program, or was it just something that just seemed to happen as part of the whole month-long process?
No, I have actually, if I had it my way, we would get rid of the teacher training and just focus on the personal transformation. Because I think teacher training, I think it just kind of gets in the way sometimes. But I think that just is like an added value, so you can appeal to two different groups of people. And the honest truth is that teaching yoga, learning how to be a yoga teacher is a powerful way to learn these teachings and really own them. But to answer your question, I remember thinking to myself something that my teacher said one time around 2008, like, could you imagine doing a month of this? And in the training that I was doing with him, the immersion I was doing with him was only 5 days. And I just sat with that, and I had kind of done something like that with him before, for about 3 weeks. But then I thought this would be so great to just really work with the same group of people for 1 month. What would that be like? And so it was that idea that really engendered this idea of the 1 month immersion. And what they say, and there's different numbers out there. There's 21 days, 28 days, 30 days, but it takes 21, 28, whichever one you want to go with, to, stop a habit. It takes that much time to create a new habit. And there's a lot of scientific evidence that shows, like, the longer you do something, the more the neurons in your brain start to form to support that new habit. And so that's kind of what motivated me to do this. Is I thought, wow, this is a really great opportunity to really attract people who want to transform, and I love doing that.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people listening would this would be something that they would, in an ideal world, love to do, is to put on some kind of giant retreat, like month-long retreat like this.
Yes.
Was there any like things in your head holding you back before you started doing it? Because I can imagine the first thing that comes up in my head is I would love to do that, but people would not leave their homes and their jobs to come and be with me for a month away somewhere. Obviously that's not true, because you've proved that's not true, but that's the kind of the first thought that comes into my head. So how did you get past that, if that was something that you were thinking?
That's a good question. The very first training that we did was in 2011. It was the very first 1 month here, and I had been leading yoga teacher trainings before that, so it wasn't my first time at the rodeo, but it was the first time I was leading a month-long training, and it was Blue Osa's first one, and we had 5 people, and it was a lot of work for me, and I loved every moment of it. And it was very different. Like trainings that I've done in the past were, just like 50-hour, 100-hour teacher trainings, and so this was something very new for me. And then after the training, we put on the training for the next year, and I don't know what had happened, but I wasn't feeling it. I decided not to do it the following year, so I actually took it off of the website, and we canceled it for the following year. And looking back at it, it had a little bit to do with a lot of things. I didn't really know if that's what I really wanted to do. What really was going on was I was doubting myself. I was doubting my ability to kind of market this. And I thought to myself, I don't know how to market this. And I just thought, if we put up the training, that people would just find us and they would come, but that wasn't happening. So, and what it ended up happening was around March of 2013, I had a coach come down to Blue Osa, and she worked with me on a lot of different things. And one of them was like, talking about teacher training. What happened was I was leading a Blue Osa yoga retreat that week, and she was taking my classes, and she said, Aaron, people need to be studying with you. People need to be taking classes with you. This is where you really shine as a teacher. And I said to her, but I don't know, people might not come. And she said, yes, they will. So she convinced me to put it back on the schedule for the following October. And we ended up getting 15 people. That was 15 people signed up and came to that training. Yeah. And really, honestly, from there, I just haven't looked back. I think the following year we had 26 people. And then last year we had 21 people. And this year we're starting to move to doing 2 a month. And then next year my goal is 4 a month. So I am really just jumping in now to the deep end of the pool and seeing where it goes.
Wow. 4 a month.
No, sorry, 4 a year.
Okay.
4 a year.
Yeah, I was thinking how are you going to get 4 month-long retreats in 1 month?
That would really have to sort of clone myself at that.
Yeah. Defy the laws of physics to do it. That's when you know you're enlightened.
But I was really scared to do it. I was really scared not to do the training, but just to have low numbers and feel like I was wasting, I don't know, people's time or the space I really started to realize that it's just, it was just my inner monologue. And the woman who helped me, her name was Linan. She was my coach for a little while, but she was really great because not only did she give me confidence, but we also sat down and worked out actual strategies and put strategies into place. And then since then, we've just kind of grown from that, and the immersion has kind of become popular for people who are not wanting like a quick fix on this path, but also people who are really, really sincere and wanting to cultivate a strong practice and know who they really are at their core.
Yeah, and I think it's just testament to the thing that I've got this idea and I want to do this, I want to do it this way, I want to do it my way. Yes, there are people out there who probably would say, I can't leave my job or my life for a month, but there are also people out there who would say, that's perfect for me, so I'm going to go and do it.
There are so many people in transition in this world. It's phenomenal to me that so many people do. And just to give you an example, like a week within literally 3 days of our immersion, this last immersion starting, 2 people registered for it. One woman was from Australia, so not only she had to make a split decision, and she had to plan her flights and itinerary and everything else and get here. And it's like 36 hours to travel. So I just really honored her when she came. I was like, wow, you're an amazing person.
Wow. That is dedication. Cool. Well, I'm really interested also in going back in time a little bit now then. And how did you first get into yoga, and why yoga? Why did yoga appeal to you?
Yoga appealed to me because I got into it initially. I was about 18 years old, and I just saw it as a way to be healthy. I was really active. I was working out all the time. I was taking care of myself, but I noticed I was becoming inflexible. And my mother was practicing yoga, and so I kind of just did it along with her. And then a friend of mine offered a class, and then I took the class. And then as he started to grow as a teacher, his classes became more interesting and more introspective. And I suffered greatly from ADD, attention deficit disorder. I still do, but yoga was the thing that really started to change that and help me find focus and help me feel, and I know this is kind of an airy-fairy term, but grounded, like really kind of centered within myself. And most of the time, like I feel, I would feel like my attention is all over the place. And I would have like so many projects on the go, and I would really never get anything done. But I started to notice changes in my behavior, in the way that I would approach, work and the tasks that I had. And I started to realize, like, oh my goodness, it's this yoga business. Like, that's really the only thing that changed in my life. And then as I kind of grew from that, my practice deepened. And it was during a trip to Los Angeles when I met my first teacher, Brian Kest. And he's probably one of the most down-to-earth, like, yoga teachers I've ever met. Like, he really doesn't talk about yoga, per se, in his classes, but he talks about life. Yeah. And I really found that it was my first experience of seeing a teacher, like, it was kind of like a motivational talk. It was like kind of going to Tony Robbins, but it's sort of a street version of Tony Robbins. Yeah. While doing yoga class. And I thought, this is amazing and so cool. And I just, all of a sudden in that moment, I saw the path that I was meant to be on. And I saw how powerful yoga could be as a tool for not just to stretch your body and train your mind, but to really create profound transformation in one's life. In that moment, I just saw it really clearly, and I said, I thought I'm meant to be a yoga teacher. And that's how I kind of got into it. And then in 2001, actually just before 9/11, I was living in New York, and that was when I met my teacher in sort of upstate, and he was leading a retreat called Living Tantra. And then I went and studied with him, and he kind of really introduced me to the power of meditation and mantra, the science of sound, and helped me find a real devotional aspect of my practice, which later on became very, very important to me, and became the cement in my practice and brought all of the pieces together. And then that's when my path really started to take off.
Wow. So at what point along this story did you decide to start Blue Osa then? And for anyone that doesn't know out there, Blue Osa is the retreat that we mentioned, the retreat location that we mentioned before. So how did you then start Blue Osa and your retreats and that sort of thing?
Blue Osa, well, I had been already leading retreats around the world. I've led retreats, several retreats as well in India and in Hawaii and in Costa Rica and in Australia. And I was in Costa Rica in 2007. And I was driving down the road, and there was this property, and there was like this kind of, I don't know, tunnel of bougainvilleas and hibiscus. And once you could see past or through it, you could see a clear view to the ocean. And it was like, can you imagine like this tunnel of bougainvilleas and then this, you know, with this kind of like topaz colored sea, through it. And I looked at it and I had three of my friends, and just before they said what they said, I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. Could I imagine having a place here? And then they all piped up. It was like they read my mind. It's like, Aaron, you should buy this place and open up a yoga retreat center. And it was like so serendipitous, it's like we were all thinking the same thing. And so that's when I found it. My business partner was with me on retreat at that moment. And we just looked out over it and made the decision to do it. I think that, the vision changed when we first opened Blue Osa. It was really, it was meant to be just for a small community of people. It has ended up becoming so much more. And then I think the vision started to expand greatly, when I was on a trip in India that literally 6 months after we found Blue Osa, I was leading a group of people in the Himalayas, and we were coming down from this mountain in a place called Tapovan, which is known as heaven, the heaven of the gods. And a boulder twice the size of a basketball came tumbling down the mountain, ironically towards our group, but it only hit me. And thank God. Not thank God it hit me, but only, it didn't hit anybody else. And it hit me right in my leg, and it shattered my femur bone. And in going through that whole experience, and realizing, the fragility of life, I think at that moment, my vision started to expand greatly into, wow, I need to play life a lot bigger. Because, it can you really never know what's going to happen. I mean, that whole incident, really happened out of the clear blue. Normally I have a premonition about something. I have an insight into something happening, but that just shook, my entire universe. And in realizing that in one moment, how quickly everything can change, and that moment that rock happened, it happened like we were almost like to the very bottom. It was like, we literally were at the very, just like taking the last few steps to get to the very bottom of the glacier, and then that rock appeared out of nowhere.
Wow. So, how long were you? Was that in isolation still? I presume you were still pretty isolated in that.
Yeah, so Tapovan itself was about 26 kilometers from Gangotri. So we had only traversed about maybe 3 kilometers down the glacier. So we still had another 20, 23, 24, 25 odd kilometers still to get to Gangotri, where the cars were. And so here we were, like, stuck on the glacier, waiting for help to arrive, and waiting for a helicopter, hopefully, to arrive. Well, it wasn't an unrealistic expectation because there was an Indian army base really close by, and we knew that they had helicopters. So, we were hoping that maybe one of them would send an emergency helicopter. Unfortunately, we found out later that it would have had to have gone through a lot of red tape. So we were waiting, and the accident happened about 8 o'clock in the morning, and about 3 in the afternoon, with the sun already starting to go down, it was very clear that help may not come that evening.
Wow. So you literally had to lay there with no painkillers with a shattered leg.
Yes. Yes. And it was, I mean, I tell people often when at that moment that I feel like all the years that I had studied yoga and all the teachings that my teachers had given me all came together in that one moment. And I really used everything that I had ever learned to be able to deal with that. And, you know, I did get down the mountain, help did come. And obviously,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not talking to you now from the mountain. Did an interview with a guy with a shattered leg.
but yeah, help did come. It took it was about 9 hours to get, you know, to Gangotri. It was an amazing experience. And these porters, these beautiful souls, you know, they carried me in they have these dandis that they typically will carry people, but they actually had to carry me through the pitch black. It was pitch black out. There was no stars in the sky that night. And it was like, you know, late at night, at 10 o'clock at night, and they're traversing this trail, you know, and one side is, at some points, at one side of the trail, there was just the mountain, like a mountainside, and then, you know, the trail's like 3 or 4 feet, and then on the other side is like the steep cliff down into the Ganges. And I was sitting on that chair just praying, you know, if I'm going to go,
Yeah.
take me up.
Yeah.
I'm ready. And then once we got to Gangotri, you know, there was an ambulance waiting, and the ambulance took off towards Delhi, and within 2 hours hit a landslide, and we were stuck for another 12 hours.
Oh, God. So you're stuck in the ambulance for 12 hours.
Yes, yeah.
Obviously, you would have got painkillers by then.
No, the ambulance didn't have any pain medication. No. And actually, we did get to this hospital sort of on the way to Delhi, and it was sort of this mountain hospital. And this doctor, he was kind of a younger guy, and he came up and he had a big smile. He said, "I can give you this painkiller." And he pulled out the syringe. He took one look at the syringe, and I said, "No, that's okay. I'll just keep breathing."
I've been dealing with this for like 16 hours, whatever it is by now.
I did not know what was in the syringe. I didn't, you know, I just didn't know. And there were dogs in the emergency room, and even cows walking down the hallways. And I thought, no, I'll just wait a little bit longer.
Wow.
No, and so when I talk about, you know, my practice, the power of yoga and the power of being really grounded in a practice is being, you know, rooted in your source. What is the source? The source is, you know, what we refer to in the tradition as home. You know, that deep place within yourself that you know is home, and that you can access it at any time. And a combination of that, a combination of deep faith, and just trusting. I mean, you know, my leg was fractured. I couldn't move. You know, sometimes you watch these movies where these action heroes have, you know, something happens to their leg, and you know that they've broken it, and yet they're still able to get up and kill or fight, you know, fight the hero or fight the enemy. And it's like, I can tell you that that's all in the movies. There's no way they can do that in real life. No way. And so you're really immobile, and you really depend. I really depended on other people until I got this thing fixed. It was like I was so dependent. At any time, you know, I could have been dropped. It could have been, and I was dropped actually a few times coming when they were carrying me down the glacier. They put me in this kind of cocoon-like thing, and had to kind of go over all of these rocks, and there was three or four guys carrying me, in this sort of cocoon thing. And it's just, you just have to really practice surrendering. So surrender was a big part of my practice, and I'm so grateful that I had that. And the last thing I had was my breath, and really being grounded in one-to-one breathing and being able to breathe through that experience. People have asked me, like, how did you deal with the pain? In yoga, we call it pranayama, deep breathing and being connected to this, vital life force within you. And it just, every time, it was always like coming back to the breath and just breathing through it. And that's what got me through it.
Yeah. So I imagine that if someone was to have their own kind of version of that boulder in their own life that might not be quite so physical, might be metaphorical, or
yes,
like, what would you say to them to help deal with that?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I mean, the thing is that most of us, most people are very unstable in their life. Things happen to people and they become, good things happen, people become, overly excited. Bad things happen, people become overly excited. And it's that, it's not even so much the overly excited part that is, sort of, that steers us in the wrong direction. It's our reaction to it, and so something bad happens and we become very negative, and those negative feelings, dictate the future decisions of our life. We make decisions in that negative place. And when good things happen and we get something that we've been, really yearning for, we make decisions to try and hold on to it, to keep it, to be attached to it. And so, and that's what I just said is not necessarily real or attainable for people to move past, to be able to change, their habit pattern. It may not even be real for people. So I think like what I would suggest to people is really get into a strong yoga practice. Know who you are, know where your inner sanctuary is, and let that be the source of joy in your life. Let that be, the guiding light in your life, so that, as life is happening to you, you take it all in stride. That you don't see things in life anymore as a series of bad events or good events, but just events that are happening to you, and how lucky you are that you're alive to enjoy everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Something that you just said that I love was that it's not necessarily the bad thing that is the bad thing. It's our reaction to the bad thing or the good thing or whatever.
Yes.
It's dealing with it's bring yourself to a place where you can have a reaction that's more positive or more in line with what you actually want to achieve going forward, as opposed to just reacting kind of off the cuff.
Yeah, I mean, my goal whenever I do anything now, whenever I teach a class or lead these immersions, but my goal for people is to, really empower them to know that they have a choice, and that we have choices in how we react. Like, when I was on the mountain, I could have reacted really negatively. I could have, just been crying the whole time and complaining, like, how did this happen to me? And at the end of the day, what does that do? It doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve anything. It doesn't empower the situation, and it really makes it more miserable, more unbearable. But I think that my attitude and choosing acceptance, deep acceptance. Yes, this happened to me. Yes, I have a broken leg. Yes, and that's all I knew in those moments. This is what has happened, and I have a choice. And there's a moment when I was on that mountain and I realized, like, this could be it. Help wasn't coming. The sun was going down. It was getting cold, and temperatures would drop way below zero. And all of the porters that had, who had our stuff were already in Gungotri at that point. They had already gone to the end of the trail. So all of our clothes were 26 kilometers away. And so there's a moment when I realized, like, do I want to be miserable or do I want to go out happy? And, that's a hard thing for people, a lot of people who are not seated or not connected to where their source is. And so that's the power of meditation. That's the power of having a spiritual practice. Whether you're Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or just a simple yogi, all of these great spiritual faiths teach us, where is that source of joy? Where is that source of happiness, seated? And, do your spiritual practice. And that's my advice, to go back to your question, is become really grounded and seated in where is your source of joy. Let that be the place that you emanate from life and make decisions.
Wow, that's amazing. So you talk about spiritual practice and like this whole stuff that we've just been talking about. But what would you say the first steps are if someone has never done any of this before and they don't have even the first idea of what a spiritual practice really is? Like, what would you say the first steps are to like moving forwards towards that?
The first steps, I would, there's a great, what, first of all, if they could, come to Blue Ocean. But I realize that that's not always possible. And so I just had to say that. Yeah. But in all sincerity, I would pick up Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now. And there is a beautiful podcast series between Eckhart Tolle and Oprah Winfrey, which is mind-blowing. And Oprah Winfrey did this worldwide event when Eckhart Tolle came out with, his new book, or his book at the time. I don't know if he's produced any more since then, but A New Earth. And they basically formed like this international book club where once a week people would call in on Skype and they videotaped it and they recorded it and they put the videos and the audio recordings out as podcasts, and you can still get them. And it is probably by far one of the most powerful series I've ever listened to. And he systematically, every week, takes you deeper and deeper into the practice of how to simply find yourself, how to go inward and find, not even find, but find and experience the source within, the source from which all inspiration comes from, the source from which all peace comes from, the source within that gives you, direction in your life. And that's where I would start, because it's not, what he's teaching is also non-denominational. It's not affiliated with any religion or any particular spiritual practice. What I loved about Eckhart Tolle is his practicalness, and his ability to bring, light into how to solve everyday problems. Because that's what happened, is that people would call in on Skype and ask questions, and real life questions. How do I pay my bills and not get stressed out? How do I become a more loving parent to my children and a better spouse. And so all of these questions are really real life questions. And he gave very sincere, straightforward, uncomplicated answers. And that's where I would start. Plus, it's free.
Oh, yeah, awesome. I'll link that up in the show notes for anyone listening,
Yeah.
if anyone is interested in heading over there. But you mentioned Eckhart Tolle, obviously. Who else has been a huge influence in your life and in your own journey?
I've been blessed to have many teachers from when I was very young to to now, and that have influenced my spiritual path a lot. Probably one of them is my teacher, Alan Finger, who's in New York. And it was because of him, I think I was able to get through my time on the mountain. One of his favorite expressions is, if you're going to be a mess, then be a happy mess, which is one of the chapters in my book.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you're going to fall down and your body's a mess or whatever's going on, then you just might as well be happy through it.
Yeah.
And my other teacher is Panaji Rajmani Tiganai from the Himalayan Institute. And he's kind of like this... he's not a sage, and I don't know that I would even call him a yogi per se, but he's this kind of like, and I'm going to say it, he's a sage who's, studied in the Himalayas but lives, a regular, normal life and runs a big institute and has opened up several others around the world, and is also my teacher. And he's just an amazing person who is tapped into this, beautiful perennial knowledge of the Himalayas and teaches it with such grace, and teaches it so selflessly to people. So those are some of the main teachers in my life.
Well, amazing. And the final question I want to ask you, and this is the first time I'm going to ask this question, and it's going to be a question that I'm going to ask at the end of each podcast episode. What's your own definition of being an enlightened entrepreneurial badass?
I think that the definition of what you just said, an entrepreneurial enlightened badass, is someone who breaks all the rules, does not follow the norm, and is heavily invested in contributing to society.
Awesome.
I believe that, as entrepreneurs, it's our social responsibility to give back. I know that, especially in the United States, there's a lot of negativity around capitalism, and rightly so on many fronts. And I believe that where capitalism, and specifically entrepreneurialism, has gone wrong, and could become better, is to realize that we are, in many respects, it's the business people that are the holders or the custodians of our culture, of our society in many ways. We need to support the religious leaders. We need to support spiritual seekers. We need to support our communities and support the poor and support projects, whatever it is. I mean, pick a project and support it. But we really have a social responsibility to our community, and but we also have a responsibility to break all the rules and show people and get people out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because I think it's like the last few years, the whole idea of entrepreneurialism has changed rapidly in the last sort of 10, 15-ish years because
Yeah,
it's no longer about just being like type A, sort of go for the money, build the business, and like try and make as much money as you can. It's with the whole internet thing. It's about just being able to support yourself, but also to give back and to create something greater than yourself as well.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, Aaron. It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for coming on. If the guys wanted to check out other stuff about you and Blue Osa and also your book as well, like where would they need to go to?
The best place to go to is yogiaaron.com. Just yogiaaron.com. No www, just yogiaaron.com. And one of the things that your listeners might find interesting is that I also have a blog up there, and I write every week or two and put like really great stuff up there.
Awesome. Awesome stuff. Well, once again, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll catch you soon.